Hey everybody, I wanted to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble is brought to you by the Demigods Kickstarter. Demigods is a new tabletop role-playing game about what happens when mortal life is turned upside down by the discovery of your divine heritage. Bringing mythology into the modern day, you'll take on the role of an epic hero and wield abilities and artifacts inherited from the divine. You'll use those against monsters, evil deities, and the mundane world. Play and create epic artifacts, mythic monsters, and lasting bonds with your fellow demigods. If you love stories like Good Omens or Percy Jackson, Demigods is for you. Demigods is kickstarting July 9th through August 8th. For more information and a quick start of the game system, go to demigodspbta.com and follow creator Jason Mills on Twitter at It's Probably Okay. Are you a god? This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, I am talking with Alex Klippinger and Phil Beckwith. These are two incredible game designers, DMs, guild creators, and so much more. We are talking about their Western spin on 5th edition and the Kickstarter that they have going on right now for Wranglers of Westhallow. It is a really cool conversation about anachronisms, comedy, and bringing the Wild West into a fantasy campaign setting. It's not what you think. It's not just using 5th edition rules to make cowboys. It is bringing cowboys into a fantasy world. It's really, really cool. I'm just going to let them talk to you. Here's the interview. Okay, everybody. Now I am here with two very impressive game designers, people that I am super excited to have on Tabletop Babble today. Let us very quickly go around the table, let people know who you are and what you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games. And Alex, let's start with you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm Alex Klippinger. I'm a D&D designer. I've been picking at that title for a little over 2 years now, and mostly found on the DMs Guild, and now I'm kind of branching out into other stuff.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this because this is one of those branches, and we'll get into that in a second. But first, let's hear from Phil. Phil, who are you and what do you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games?
G'day, James. I'm Phil Beckwith. I'm just like Alex, started off as a DM Guild game designer with D&D 5e, and I've been branching out into a few different things. Hero Kids, some 5e OGL. Also been, I guess I fall into the category of small house publisher as well, where I work with, it's a great opportunity to work with a lot of other folk on some of my projects, which is great.
Yeah. You both have a large body of work. You've been at this for a while, and your work is impressive and great, and everybody should check it out. And this latest project is called Wranglers of Westhallow. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what this thing is? It sounds like it's got a cowboy feel.
Yeah, well, that's right. So I think the seed started where I was just sitting down watching old movies, old 90s, 80s and 90s movies. And one of the movies that popped up was Young Guns and Young Guns 2. And they had that sort of, I guess, comedy feel to them, whilst not being all out comedy, but they had that comedy feel to them. I thought, geez, you know what? Doing that in 5e would be a whole lot of fun. I mean, there's not a lot of precedence for it, but just that theme, it's a really strong theme. It's something that's really fun, and we could get really silly with it. And I thought, who's the best person that could bring that to it? And I really wanted some comedy and some parody in there. And I couldn't really go past thinking about bringing Alex on board, because just one of the wittiest and funny guys that I know in the industry. So I thought I've got to get him on. So I contacted him, and Alex was happy to jump on board with us here.
So really it was comedy first, not Western, that brought you to this? It was that idea of like you wanted to make something fun and humorous.
Yeah, I wanted to make something that people could sit down, grab a bunch bunch of friends, something that's a bit more casual, not overly serious, and just jump in and have a good laugh for an evening. It's very much tilted that way, and I just love the really sort of unique themes that you can get from an old school spaghetti western that you can just get really crazy and over the top with, and just a lot of fun.
So, Alex, what did you think when Phil brought you this idea?
I was really interested from the get-go. It's funny because I told him when he asked me originally, and I said, "Oh, well, it kind of turns out I already wrote a Western adventure. I've got an Eberron-based Western that's sitting on the big pile of finished projects that I need to bother publishing at some point." So like this is already kind of a thing that had an interested me to kind of mix that genre into D&D and kind of play around with putting this much more what tends to be really American and modern sort of shtick into the fantasy setting of D&D. It's always really piqued my interest. So I mean, when Phil asked if I wanted to jump on board a project, that's all about that, I thought, yeah, that could be a whole lot of fun. And the way that it's kind of expanded out and grown from just like the concept for a single adventure into the campaign that we're working on has been really exciting.
So when you say campaign, what are we talking about here? Is this a setting? Is this a longer adventure path? What are we looking at?
Okay, so basically the idea here is that it gives you, I guess, a starting adventure, a first adventure that you get into, and it's the way I look at it is it's going to be designed, or it is designed as a spoke, right, or a wheel, where you've got the central hub, which is the first adventure, the intro adventure into the setting, which is really just the town of Westhallow, and you could drop that into any medieval high fantasy setting. That's really where we're coming from, so that you could really just bring any group into it, and suddenly all of these Western themes start to kick off in this town. And then once the group's established there, each adventure after that first one is going to be modulated, so that it just spokes out into these different modulated adventures where they don't have to be run in order particularly. They can be. There's not necessarily an overarching narrative there, but there is. There's some things happening in the background, but they don't have to be all run adventure 1, adventure 2, adventure 3, adventure. You can swap and change as you want, just sort of throw it at the group. That really incorporates the casual feel, especially for those groups that would do keep it casual, and you've got people coming in and coming out. It's almost like a West Marches campaign.
Gotcha. And then are there other rules that come along with this to make it feel like a Western, right? Like, are there rules for gunplay and things like that?
Yeah, so Alex is doing a lot of the writing when it comes to the gunplay. So I'll throw the ball over to you here, Alex.
Yeah, so the actual the intro adventures we have it now has gunplay, and I think in the text we call them lead spitters because they're the invention of a gnomish inventor. The gunplay is pretty light in the first adventure. It's present with a lot of enemies, and then to kind of tease it for player use, they have kind of a limited use of it, or not unlimited use of it. And one of the things they'll end up doing a couple times, potentially throughout the adventure, is the classic Western standoff. And there's a whole little mini process for doing a kind of that Western shooter standoff where you're trying to you're doing the stare down against each other to try to intimidate the other person. If you can intimidate the other person, you have a chance of making, you're better at making the first move, kind of thing. It tries to be supportive of, people doing not just pull out your gun and shoot the other person, but doing improvisation, like supporting rules for like shooting the gun out of their hand, or literally giving advice on how to improvise a situation, or just if you want to, just straight up, pull your gun and attack. And I think those are rules that kind of play around with the traditional Western scenes people would recognize, and I think we're going to try to expand on those more in the Spoke Hub adventures as well.
And so the idea isn't, hey, this is a traditional Old West setting that uses 5e rules. The idea is this is a fantasy world and the Wild West themes and tropes have sort of invaded. And so that brings me to my next question, which is why 5th edition? What was it about 5th edition D&D that you thought this is the right rule set for this?
Well, honestly, it's what I've got the most experience in writing for. I love the system. Firstly, it's simple. It's very lent towards thematic play, more so than any other D&D system that I've ever played in, which really, I guess, helps that ability to bring in lots of different genres to the gaming table. I think, it really lends itself to adding and bending either current rules or adding new rules, or even just giving the DM the flexibility to really ham things up and really bring in decisions on the fly, which you probably need when you're adding certain things to fantasy setting that aren't usually quite, medieval type fantasy tropes.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it makes sense, too, that you would design in a system you're very familiar with. 5th edition is, I think, a very versatile, broad, flexible system. And for the idea you have, this is a fantasy world. So I assume there's magic and all of the normal things we've come to expect. Is it in can it be dropped into sort of any campaign setting?
Yeah, definitely. Like, basically, it's the Westhallow is an edge town, so you can just drop it into any setting where there's, I guess, an edge of civilization type town. There's a few businesses, buildings that are set up there, a tight knit community of people, and you just need to drop it on say the border of civilization, and there you go.
Alex, when you were working on the rules for this, the additional rules that are used for some of these Western tropes, what did you find as far as lethality, as far as did it create any weird spikes? Did it mesh well with the system at first? What sort of problems did you find that you had to iron out?
The classic, the Dungeon Master's Guide has suggestions for, modern or even futuristic weapons in the back. I shied a little bit away from those just because I wanted to avoid that issue of, swords are great, but an antimatter rifle's better. So, like we were just discussing, the chassis for 5e has it's very flexible. It's so open to modification, but I also think that it is a really good system on its own. And so I try to approach with kind of a lighter touch when I'm doing rule changes like this, because people are going to be approaching this. Ideally, a lot of people have a working knowledge of 5e if they're going to jump into a 5e Kickstarter product like that. So I'm trying not to add huge, thick layers of additional rules on top of that for people to learn. I'm trying to keep it as close to recognizable mechanics and ideas that are easily grasped, just because I want it to be as accessible for every level of experience at the table as possible.
When you talk about rules changes like that, are these additional rules, or have you gotten in there and have you tweaked the way some actual things work, or is this like hey, here it is, you put this right on, it's the 5e plus a little extra?
It's more of the plus a little extra approach. Like I said, people are coming to this with a knowledge of what I would say, quote unquote normal D&D or a 5e game. I don't want to mess too much with a system that's pretty rock solid at its base. So just adding a bit on top of that and making sure that I don't go crazy building up a huge rule set on top of the already good, 5th edition base is really the goal.
Totally. Well, and I think that's, for my money, that's better because I get to use then everything that I have already purchased for 5th edition D&D, and then I have this other awesome thing that slides right in and works with everything else, right? In some ways, it's harder, especially when you're doing some anachronistic designing like this. It can be hard to say like, okay, well now it's all got to fit together, but so I can't change this exactly. I need to incorporate what's there. So my hat is off to you, and I thank you for designing things that way, because it is certainly, as a consumer, my preferred way of taking something into a system that already exists, which I love. Hey everybody, I just wanted to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble is brought to you by D&D Beyond. You know D&D Beyond, they're the official digital tool set of Dungeons and Dragons, and we love them over here. They're saving our spines, they are saving our sanity, they're making it easy to look up D&D content. But today I want to talk about what you get for free from D&D Beyond. That's right, I'm talking about all of the awesome videos that Todd Kenrick makes. I'm talking about articles by James J. Hake and other contributors like myself. You should definitely go check those out. Every week there is amazing content coming out of here. Interviews, all that kind of stuff. It wasn't very long ago, 5 years ago, we were hungry for D&D content. When were we going to get official word on things? When could we hear from people? Guess what? D&D Beyond is making it happen on a regular basis. So go check it out. I also wanted to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble is brought to you by Nerdarchy and the Out of the Box Encounters on Kickstarter. Out of the Box Encounters is Nerdarchy's first Kickstarter, and it's already funded, and believe me, it is smashing through stretch goals. The Book of Encounters is designed to make running 5th edition effortless. Each encounter in the book is full of content. It can be used to fill in the gaps between games, it could be used to start a new adventure, or some of them you could build an entire campaign around. This book is packed with encounters, wilderness encounters, dungeon encounters, from sword and spell slinging to puzzles and social interaction. There is something for everyone. This is a very helpful book. The Nerdarchy team is collaborating with amazing people to make this book a reality. People like Matt Mercer and Lisa Penrose, and also me. Check out the awesomeness over at nerdarchy.com and tell them DSPN sent you. Let's get back to the babble. So with Wranglers, we have this anachronistic feel, this Western idea, which one, I love that and a team of an Australian and an American guy, the Australian is the one who was like, let's do Wild West. But the other thing that I'm wondering is, how hard are you all leaning into the Wild West versus the fantasy thing? Or did you find some way to make them work together? What was the sort of story and narrative goal there as you were mixing the peanut butter and chocolate?
I think the approach that we took with this was to lean into the comedic aspect of the fact that this is a drop-in location, a kind of a drop-in mini setting that can go into any normally kind of medieval styled fantasy world. It is weird. The Western stuff is presented as being weird because all of these tropes, well, howdy partner, there's gold in their hills, all that stuff. It's weird. Imagine having no knowledge of that. You're in this fantasy high magic world, and all that it would seem so bizarre and so strange. And so we definitely leaned into that aspect of saying, this is a fantasy world, but look how weird this is. So in character, player characters get to treat this as being really bizarre and kind of alien, even though the players at the table recognize a lot of the tropes and recognize the accents and the sayings and everything. I think that actually kind of punches up the comedy or like the fun that people can have at the table with it by intentionally playing it to where their character does not recognize what in the world is going on. But of course the players themselves will recognize a lot of these themes and things. And there's, I think, a lot of fun to be had there.
So it's probably important to know that story-wise, the Western themes are, I guess, they're pushed onto the Westhallow residents by a maniacal, gun-toting, crazed robot construct. Basically, that's
Yes, I am on board.
yeah, that's got these this town at bay and getting him to, I guess, play parts in its own sort of Western vision of how he thinks the world should be, and it's really up to the adventurers to come in and save this town from acting out these crazy shenanigans and crazy things. It's very much got that Westworld feel to it in that way, but it takes it to a whole new direction in terms of the comedy, and it's very much parody in that respect.
So not only do you have cowboys and guns and medieval fantasy, you've also got robots coming in. So we've added a third genre. I am so on board for all of this.
That was Alex's genius there, and it just works so well. It's sort of like the glue that meshes the Western and the medieval themes together. It really allows that foreign or that alien theme into the medieval setting.
Yeah, it's really, this is fascinating to me. I am so on board, and this is such a hard thing to do. And then you also gave yourselves the challenge of being funny, right? Which I think there's a lot of debate about being funny. How are you funny when you write an adventure? That kind of thing. So let's talk about the humor. How did you approach that?
Well, that's why I brought Alex on board. So I'm generally not a terribly funny guy, and I've just find myself laughing at Alex's hilarious tweets and just in general chit chat with Alex a lot too. So that's really one of the main reasons I approached Alex for this role. So I'll throw that one over to you, Alex.
Yes, and now all the podcast listeners are like, "Make us laugh, Alex!
Yeah,
come on,
be funny. You're a comedian. Be funny."
So it's, being funny in adventure writing is, I think first and foremost, it's about entertaining, and it's about making the DM laugh before it's about making the players laugh, because you need to sell the person reading the adventure on the joke. If they cannot find the setup funny, if they don't kind of buy into the concept, it's going to be hard for them to run it as a comedy at the table. The other aspect when it comes to making the experience for everyone funny is to just set up to create the absurd, to create the ridiculous, to kind of set up the whole joke, but you let the players and the DM come up with why it's funny, and you let them write the punchlines. You let them engage with the setup in a way that they will find funny. Because I could write a bunch of punchlines in the adventure text all day, but I can't predict what every single table is going to find funny. So it's more about creating these ridiculous characters, or creating these recognizable tropes, or setting up these situations and making it funny enough that people want to engage with it, and then just leaving them to make those experiences at the table funny. Because trust me, D&D players can make their game funny. I could write a serious campaign and they will make it funny. It's fine. All I have to do is just give the setup, and especially if we're talking about a genre piece like this, it's to like I said, create all of those tropes and like those little references and things like that, all those little kind of pop culture nods, or the big themes that people will understand from previous experience, and let them, let them choose whether or not they want to kind of engage with those or not. And that's something that just comes up randomly, at the table, whether or not people catch it in the moment or decide to do anything with it.
I think if you try to write everything as hilarious, you have a hard time if you're trying to write the the entirety of the joke. I like what you said, right? Let the players and the DM write the punchlines, you write the setups. I think is a perfect way to think of it. Ridiculous characters, crazy situations, and then let them take the ball from there and roll with it is just perfect. And the thing about D&D players will make a joke out of anything is definitely true. I can't tell you the number of times I've been like, this is the most horrific, terrifying thing I've ever written. And then I hear stories about like, hey, when we ran this guy had a banana in his pocket and he used the peel to slip and then the orcs fell and, that whole kind of thing. So, which is great. I do the exact same thing when I am a player. So I totally get it. And there's, as long as everybody's having a good time, that's what it's all about. So, and it sounds like you've got a myriad of setups in here. Let me ask you about some tropes. What we got a mine? Is there a mine in here at any point?
Not yet. We have a prospector. So
there's an implied mine then. If there's a prospector, he just hasn't found it yet, right? He's still looking. He's still looking for a place to set up.
That's right. He sort of forced this role of being the prospector of the town, and he just takes it on board and just runs with it. To the point where even when he doesn't have to, he still puts on this prospector persona, which is great. Of course, he's a dwarf. Right?
That's awesome. Of course. Yeah. So let me ask you then, as far as these tropes go, were there any specific ones that you were like, these, we have to hit these? This is exactly what we want to do in this intro adventure.
I definitely wanted some bull riding and rodeo. I really, really wanted a rodeo and some yeeharing, lots of yeeharing, and sort of almost to the point where the players are really invited into doing these things as well as the NPCs.
Phil also had this really great idea of there being of playing around with mimics. So we've actually got a mimics in a couple different places in the intro adventure. Again, kind of one of like the sort of the hook thing that kind of brings people into the plot. They engage with mimics that are disguised as tumbleweeds, and the tumbleweeds just kind of blow across the landscape until they hit something that they want, and they go, oh, and they just splat and they stick onto it. And then we've also got an old timey what has been made into what was a tavern has been kind of made into an old timey saloon, and they've got an intelligent, communicative mimic that disguises itself as a player piano. So the piano plays itself, and then we'll prank patrons by suddenly revealing itself and scaring them.
That's awesome. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter. How is this working? When you kickstart, what are you getting?
Yep. So straight up, you're getting two adventures, and then we've got stretch goals to hit a third and a fourth adventure. Should we hit those goals? You're getting 2 PDFs for those adventures. Then we'll be combining those into a larger softcover print book, maybe hardcover if we end up getting to the larger stretch goals and adding more and more content. Also, there are some back levels where we'll be running some online games where Alex has kindly put up his hand to DM for those particular backers as for their backer rewards. So they get to get these adventures, come in and just play a game with us basically. And I mean, I'll probably be sitting at that table as well because I want to play too. And Alex will be running that for us. And then they can see how Alex intended some of these things, and they can really get ideas from one of the main authors.
At the time of this podcast, by the time it has launched, it's already available. People should go right now to Kickstarter and search for this incredible adventure that they can pick up, or 2 adventures, I guess we should say, that they can pick up. Who else is working on this with y'all? Is it just a 2-person team? Do you have artists and that sort of thing?
At the moment, we haven't. We've got Danny Pavlov, who's done the cover art at the moment for us, which is an awesome sort of cartoonish cover art with some great action happening.
It is. It's great. You sent it to me, and it made me laugh right away as soon as I saw it. This is, I think it really gets across your message of what this adventure is about.
So at the moment, Danny Pavlov, and he's also agreed to come on board for our internal art throughout the books when we fund. And so he's really the only artist on it at the moment, which is good because he really brings a particular feel to the book itself with that style that he's put on that cover art, and we'll draw that through all of the books, which really gives you that sense of feel on what the adventure is conveying there. We've got Chris Walls, who's coming on board as the editor, copy editor for this as well, which is great. So he's got a lot of experience working with Cubicle 7 and a lot of his own and DM's Guild editing as well. So and also another guy with a great sense of humor as well, which so he'll be able to really help us with bringing out some ideas as well.
And then are we talking about stretch goals yet? Do we have any stretch goals in mind? Are we not trying to jinx it?
Okay, so first up we got a third adventure for the first stretch goal at it's about 2.8k. So the goal for this Kickstarter is only about 2.2k, I think it is, USD to fund. So it's quite a low goal. So we'll easily be able to fund this and then get this out to people. But then we've got the stretch goals, which is we'll have a brand new third adventure. Then we go higher, we'll be gaining more arts, and then we're looking at doing a Warlock Patreon that Alex wants to throw into it, which will complement one of the secondary adventures, which has a very particular story vibe to it, which really gets to the central concept of what's happening in this town as well. And then a further fourth adventure for the higher tier goals.
Any final parting thoughts here about Wranglers of Westhallow before we go?
Jump on board. We really want to bring people into this town and get the laughs happening, really, get the enjoyment happening. So jump on board the Kickstarter. Look us up on Kickstarter, Wranglers of Westhallow, or simply search for myself, Phil Beckwith, on Kickstarter. You should be able to find all the projects that I'm working on, including this. And jump in, be a part of it.
Well, before we go, Alex, where can people find you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter @AClippinger. I do a lot of design notes, a lot of product advertisements or upcoming projects I'm working on. And you can also find me on the DM's Guild under my author name, which is also my real name. Don't know why I called it my author name, Alex Clippinger.
Now we know. Now we know for sure that is not your real name because you've slipped up. You've slipped up. And we know that it is you, Eric Trump, who has been writing all these wonderful products. No, not at all. And let us go now to you, Phil. Where can people find you?
Okay, so a couple of places. The best place to find me, really, where I talk a lot, is Twitter as well, PB Publishing 1, and probably talking about design concepts and things like that. Or you can check me out on DriveThruRPG. Search for PB Publishing and DM's Guild. I've got a bunch of stuff on DM's Guild, so it shouldn't be too hard to find me in there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much both for joining me today on Tabletop Babble.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
That was a great interview with Alex and Phil. I do hope they come back to talk to us some more. You know, people, if you want to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/Introcaso. That's patreon.com/Introcaso, where you can get more content, a monthly live Q&A chat with me. You can get piece of content that I write every month, and you can also get surveys that help you vote on the direction this show is going. But more importantly, you help support this content, which is not cheap to create. You also help the content on World Builder blog and so many of the other things that I do when you head on over there. So head on over to patreon.com/Introcaso and see what so many people are already talking about. Also, if you can't support the show financially, guess what? You can still help us out. How? Head on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. It's free to create an account, and even if you're not listening to Apple Podcasts, odds are iTunes algorithms are being used on whatever podcatcher app you are using to rate and recommend podcasts to others. So go, leave us a review, rate all of the podcasts you love. If you leave us a 5-star review, I will read it out loud and credit the person who left it. You can make me say anything you want. All right, people, you can find me on Twitter at James Introcaso. That's at JamesIntrocaso. And you can check out all my game design stuff and musings over at worldbuilderblog.com. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Don't forget, RPGs are like sex. Hey everybody, I just wanted to let you know that this episode of Tabletop Babble was brought to you by Kobold Press and the Warlock Patreon. The Warlock Patreon is Kobold Press's way to put out regular content for people who love dark fantasy in 5th edition or the Midgard campaign setting. With your support, they can make more content on a regular ongoing basis. In return for becoming a patron, you get access to new maps, monsters, 5e character options, adventures in awesome dungeons, and so much more. Help expand the world of 5th edition dark fantasy at patreon.com/koboldpress. That's patreon.com/koboldpress.